Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business Conversation with Gaitha. My name is Gaitha. I run a company called Regal Africa, where we are focused on just helping our clients create wealth. It's all about creating wealth, and I'm very excited today because this is our grand finale episode. We've done 9 episodes of the Business Conversation with Gaitha, and today I thought it would be really great to just really have a discussion of why, as business people, you do need professional advice in order for you to be able to scale up your business. As an advisory firm who works with other companies, a lot of people wonder, why should I pay for an advisor while I can do it myself? But maybe they are in, a startup, an SME, or a large corporate. But I always tell people, for you to take it to the next level, you actually need knowledgeable people who are going to help you on this business journey, and you really need to get the best of the best. So today I'm very excited because I have 3 great people who are advisors in different facets. We have Gichaga, who runs the private equity support. So she's all about helping businesses access finance and walk you through the journey of what does it take to actually position yourself to get investment. I also have Karumba Kinyua from PineHill Consulting. He's a risk management and strategy expert, and he's really great at actually helping businesses to walk that journey, look at the opportunities that they might not be understanding, especially around business model transformation. So he's a really good person to talk to be able to share with you how it is that you can grow in your journey. I also have with me Haanee, who works for CMS, Daly advocates. He's a great legal expert, legal advisor, lawyer extraordinaire, if I may say so, who will be actually talking to us about why it's important to have legal advice. Like I said, it's really good as a business to have the right people on your team, and I recognize it might be very expensive for you to have them in-house, so you want to be able to work with them, even if it's externally, so that they can make sure that your business is successful and you're growing, you're scaling, and you're able to create wealth for yourself and your family. Remember, at Regal Africa, we say it's all about creating generational wealth, And I believe the way you can do that is through business and through investment income. So with that, I want to welcome everyone who's joining us on Facebook. I see a few people have joined us on Zoom. And I'll go ahead and just, I like to read the bios of the people who join me on this show so that you can have an idea about what these people have done, what their experience is, the education. So when I say they're experts in their field, I really do mean that, because they're actually being tested and they have the experience behind it. So I'll go ahead and just start off with Diana Gichaga. I met Diana a couple of years ago, and back then she was working for Britain. Before I read her bio, I'll just speak about her. And we met at a ladies forum, MTC. I don't know if Diana remembers that. And we just started talking and engaging because there are very few people in the investment world. So years later, I left corporate. I started my company. Diana left corporate, started private equity support because it's something she's very passionate about. And again, over the years, I've just kept up with what she's been doing. And it's somebody that I really look up to. And like I said, she is an expert in her field. So go ahead and just read Diana's bio so that you can get an essence of what I'm talking about. So Diana is a frontier market professional providing business and transaction advisory services that focus on deal origination, investor readiness, investment structuring, capital raising, investor relations, and portfolio company support in the capital markets and the private equity stroke venture capital industries in sub-Saharan Africa. Diana has over 15 years work experience and is the founder and managing partner of Private Equity Support, an enterprise support advisory organization working with small and growing businesses within East and West Africa. Private Equity Support provides investor readiness support to, like I said, small growing businesses seeking to raise early stage financing or support in repositioning for sustainable growth. Diana is an advocate of the High Court in Kenya. She got her Bachelor of Law degree from the University of Nairobi. She has a postgraduate diploma distinction in marketing, public relations, customer service, and advertising from London Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She has passed her CFA Level 1 exam and is currently undertaking her Master's in Entrepreneurship at the University of Cambridge. So welcome, Diana, to the show. And I can't wait for you to tell us what it is we need to do in order for us to position ourselves for investors. All right. Thank you, Diana, for coming on to the show. I also have Karumba Kinyua. Same thing. I met him a couple of years ago. We're in the same industry. We've actually done some transactions together. But one of the things I really like about Karumba is he's very meticulous. He is a go-getter. He sees opportunity and he takes it. And he's all about business. He's all about business. So welcome, Karumba, to the show. And I'll go ahead and just tell you exactly what Karumba has been doing over the years. Karumba Kinyua is a corporate leader in strategy, finance, investment, and has over 15 years experience with extensive knowledge in property investment and fund management, project management, financial analysis, research and report writing, and budget and risk management and training. Karumba has worked for Britam, Old Mutual in Kenya, Emerging Capital Holding, Axis Real Estate, Old Mutual Bermuda in New York as a risk control associate, Centum Investment Company as a project finance manager, and he's the current managing partner at PineHill Consulting. Karumba holds a master's in corporate real estate management and finance from CAF Business School in London. He has a Bachelor of Commerce degree in business administration, and he's currently studying his Certified Financial Analyst CFA Level 2 exam. Again, welcome, Karumba, to the show. And we really want to understand exactly what we need to be doing, especially around risk and strategy as we position ourselves in the next new normal. And the third person I also want to welcome on the show today is Haanee Khan. I met Haanee Khan, I think it was a year ago. We were actually doing something at Mita, and Mita is a place where businesses come together, especially SMEs. And he was talking about what they need to do in regards to legal. Well, I was talking about what they need to do in regards to business and financial management. And when I listened to him and his expertise in corporate and commercial law, I felt that when I do my grand finale, I wanted an expert to come and talk to you about all things legal. We know in business, you do really need a legal advisor. So I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about Haanee. So Haanee is a partner in the corporate and commercial department at CMF Daly in Inamdar, advocate, and he's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Haanee's primary area of practice is corporate and commercial law and a niche focus in the aviation industry. He has substantial experience in both corporate M&A transactions and aviation finance and regulatory work. In his capacity as a corporate lawyer, he has been involved in a range of private equity matters, mergers and acquisitions, cutting across a range of specialty sectors, including healthcare, communication, aviation, and banking. In his capacity as an aviation lawyer, he has advised airlines. Sorry about that, I just missed that. So he has advised airlines, leasing companies, and lenders on an array of matters, and he has regularly featured as a speaker at various key aviation events. Haanee has, what's this called again? He has a Bachelor of Science in Business Management with Law from the University of Salford in the United Kingdom. He actually studied at BPP Law School in the United Kingdom and has a diploma in law. He also went to Nottingham Trent University in the United Kingdom and got his Bachelor's of Law. And he also went to Nottingham Law School in the United Kingdom, and he has legal practice course and certificate in the United Kingdom. He has been admitted as an advocate in the High Court of Kenya. So anything to do with law in Kenya, he is the go-to person. And like you see, we are studied globally. Actually, all of them have studied globally outside the Kenyan, outside Kenya or outside Africa, which gives all of them a different perspective of how I believe all African businesses really need to be looking at things as we transition from just, I say, playing small to actually running big businesses that I believe business people should be looking at. There's opportunity in Africa that is coming, especially with the Africa Free Trade Agreement. There's a lot of opportunity with other countries around the world, you're seeing everybody wants to do a trade deal with Africa because they understand we are 1.2 billion people in Africa. And so if you want to make money, if you want to be wealthy, you need to be in business that has ability to be scalable, to be sustainable, and to be successful. So I believe these are the right advisors that you should be talking to right after this if you need to your business to grow. So with that, I will go ahead and let's start this conversation, right? All right, so I'll start off with you, Diana. So Diana, you run the private equity support, right? So it is a fund that supports SMEs to access equity investment. What exactly is the process you take to work with these businesses to ensure that they're ready for funding and that they're positioning themselves to engage with the right investors and ensure a successful fundraising process? In my experience, everyone is looking for capital. Everyone is saying they want an investor, but the process is challenging. But in your case, you're supporting them through that journey. Tell us, what is the process like, Diana?
Thank you, Anne, for, first of all, a very glowing introduction. It's always funny when someone introduces you, you always feel like they're introducing someone else, but thank you for that, and very good memory in terms of when we actually met. So when you think about the whole process of raising capital, you're right, it's challenging, it's frustrating, and sometimes the period takes much longer than what you had anticipated. And what this does is it tends to put off a lot of people outside, say, the typical commercial debt that they can get from banks. When it comes to getting money from alternative providers and private equity funds, impact funds, or even private debt investors, they tend to find the process tedious. And what we do is we always say it helps to be ready. And when we talk about ready, people always ask, okay, what do you mean ready? Internally, what we always say is it's important for a business to critically analyze what sort of growth path they are in, because everyone always seems to think that growth is just funded by capital, but there are very many other resources that people tend to underestimate. And this could be something as simple as the human resource required to execute it, and even just the ownership of certain physical assets that are required to do that. So for private capital providers, they tend to look at all those aspects. If you're looking for funding, they won't only look at the amount that you need, they will take a deeper dive into the business to sort of understand what's your growth path, how are you growing, and how are you creating that value, and then get to understand even better how that capital can help you reach those milestones, or until what point those milestones can be delivered with the funding that they will give you if they decide to invest. So what happens is, this is where the disconnect starts, because unlike commercial banks, where it's simple, it's more of a checklist exercise, although this has started changing, they're going beyond what you call a cookie cutter approach, where everyone has to meet the sort of same criteria. We've seen some very innovative products coming up. Private capital providers will take a closer look at your business because they're more what we call at-risk capital providers, meaning they take on a lot of risk when they're investing in these businesses. So what I always say is, do not start looking for water when your house is on fire, right? If you're going to start raising money from private capital providers, don't come when you need the money tomorrow, because their processes are not such that they will be able to turn that decision in what you're calling a very short time. It is always good to anticipate the process so that it gives you a lot of leeway, and especially at the negotiation table. Because when you come to business, what ends up happening is, if the investor really likes your business, they are able to push for terms that might not be as favorable. And that's why you'll find a lot of these businesses, they go grumbling. They're like, I had to give up X equity. I really didn't have a choice. You do. You just have to plan it, and you just need to plan ample time to engage. So basically, a very quick overview is you need to ensure that you're getting the right amount. And when you talk about the right amount, people always ask, but if I can get as much money as I can, I'm going to grab it. It's not free money. There is a return. So there is such a thing as an overfunded business. when you get investor money, especially from private capital providers, there's a term we use in the industry, sweating the capital. That money is expensive. You need to make it do the heavy lifting in your business. So, you know, where you really feel that this cost is not something that the business can really bear, let that be addressed by the funding from the private capital funders. So the other thing I always tell people is, if you end up having more money than the business can actually deploy, you actually end up paying for it more expensively because you're not creating corresponding value on this other side. So you still have the same size of business, and yet your obligation in terms of the returns you have promised are quite high. So you end up in a lot of frustration. And remember, your business has not stopped generating money, right? You know, people come and say, oh, I want 10 million. And they get surprised when an investor is like, okay, the asset is 10 million. Okay, what are you putting on the table? And they sort of do a back take like, what do you mean? It's because your business is still generating money, right? So the investor wants to know you're just raising what is actually required, because the chances of your business being more successful is good because you're using the right amount of capital for the right uses. So what I will always emphasize is, when you want to engage with private capital providers, and I say private because they're outside of the banks. So these are your IFCs for the really larger size companies. For the medium-sized companies that are growing, these are the private equity firms that we're talking about. For the smaller businesses, these are what you call the impact funds, or even the grant providers. It's important to have gone through an internal process so you can know, how much do I really need? What is that money going to be used for? How am I going to create value to be able to repay that money and match the type of capital you're getting with sort of the revenues the business is generating? And what I mean is, if you're going to get private debt to build something, you need to have money or cash flow that can facilitate the payments before whatever you're building is actually completed. So sometimes people rush to get money and then realize, ooh, what I wanted to invest in will take a while to give me that return. Then you start to scramble to try and get your returns or to pay back that money. So just take time to prepare, and remember, if you start early enough, you have a bit more negotiating power, especially if you're a really good business. And then maybe just the last point before I just pause right there is to ensure that the documents that you need to support this ask of capital are up to date. How many times we have sat with a business and we ask, okay, your business plan ready? They're like, oh, yeah. And then when you go and look at it, it was done 5 years ago. The business has substantially changed. They're not doing what they were doing. So just make sure your audited accounts are ready, your documents are all up to date and they're available, so that when the investor is asking you for information, you know, it's a seamless flow. It's, think of a choir master. When he taps that thing, it's like note E, you're there with your note E. Note F, you're there with your note F. Not note E, and then he's hearing all sorts of discordant noises. Because as an investor, he will say, if it's this hard to just get documents from you, how much harder will it be when I try to ask you to give me a return for the funding that I have? So just a quick overview, Anne.
Wow, Dana, thank you so much for taking us through that process. I agree with what you say. I always tell people you have to be patient, you have to be prepared. Being prepared is actually where I see a lot of people are not prepared. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, we had a couple of private equity funds here and VC funds, and they were saying they have the money and they're looking for good businesses. The question is, and I kept telling the business people who listen to the show, are you ready for that funding? Because most of the time they're not ready and the process is tedious. And then, you know, at the very end, they're like, it's too much. I'd rather just go to the bank. And yet, if they have been prepared, if they're compliant, their documents are ready. And like I always say, if they can't do it, they can get you to help them to do those documents, right? So again, business people, if you're listening, Dan has shared what the process is. It's just about being patient, be prepared. One of the things he also said is that people need to know what it is that they're going to use the funds for. People are not usually, you know, it's in their head.
Precise, exactly.
It's in their head.
It's about
Exactly. And I always get that
buying.
question of, I need money, and I ask how much. They don't know debt or equity. I don't know anything. Just give me. And I go like, if you haven't even figured that out, how then do you even approach anyone to tell you? That means really you don't have a clear vision or a clear strategy for your business. And I liked what you said, do not look for water when your house is on fire. I think I'll use that. I'll start telling people, hey, when your house
Let
is
me
on fire, that's not
copyright
when you
it.
look for water. Yeah. Oh yeah,
I was
you
saying, let
should,
me
because
copyright.
I think it's a good one. Yes, 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 yes. And actually take Haanee. Tell Haanee to introduce you to his IP people at CMS. All right, thank you, Dana, for that. I really, really appreciate that. And I know the people who are watching are gonna really appreciate that. I'll then go on to Karumba, the risk guy, the guy who talks to businesses and tells them, this is what you need to do to mitigate your risk, especially at this time of COVID. I believe, Karumba, many people have come to you at PineHill because the COVID pandemic has shown businesses that they need to be prepared always. And for you as a risk and strategy expert, what services are you able to offer businesses to ensure that they're prepared for the next crisis? Because I tell people crisis will come. Maybe this one was like a really big crisis that people didn't anticipate, but in business, there are always crises that are happening. So tell us, Karumba, what is it that you do at PineHill that will help businesses walk through this journey and be prepared for the next crisis? Please unmute yourself, Karumba.
Oh, thank you very much for such a kind introduction. I'm very pleased to be on your show today. And I think I like the way the discussion is going, because when people think of risk and strategy, they are more defensive. But right now, some companies have approached us and they're asking us to redesign their strategy in line with the new operational environment. And what we've seen is that now people who are able to throw away what they have had for a couple of 1 year or 2 years are now able to readjust to the new COVID environment. Really, no one thought it will last this long, but now that we are here, nobody knows how long it will last. But what I'm seeing in the market also is people who appreciate risk and this, the current environment, are taking on more risk. They are very, for example, even if you talk of the funding space, people who manage the funding risk well are not, are careful to engage with the right investors who are aligned to their goals and objectives. Recently I read a case of a large entrepreneur in Kenya who literally lost their business to investors because they had not thought through, while the legal documentation was fine, they had not thought through of the funding implication of, convertible papers and bonds, because when they converted, then the investor had a lot of shareholding and they were easily able to ask them to step aside so that they can have new management on board. So the people, really, we tell people, individuals, that please have an emergency funding for your own personal spending, maybe 3 to 6 months. I'm also telling businesses, please have emergency funding so that in case something like COVID shows up, then you are able to tide over this environment. And you really, they say that it's when the tide goes out that we know who's swimming naked. So right now, if your business was not anchored on a strong customer proposition, didn't have any savings to ride through this period when customers may not be writing a lot of orders or paying on time, then you'll fall away, or you could easily be acquired for not so much money. But a business that had a sound business model and is willing to pivot very quickly could do actually very, very well at this moment. So really, and strategy is the same. It's about SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And right now, I believe every management should have carried out a SWOT analysis. What are the internal strengths? What are the internal weaknesses? What are the opportunities we are seeing? In fact, a lot of companies have moved on to start providing sanitizers and masks and home delivery. Even the companies that were not doing that before We had some companies that now are doing online training and offering online facilities. So in this environment, there are opportunities. There are also threats that easily a company can easily overcome. So I think in closing, what I'll say is that what people need to do right now, the mission of your existence as a company surely remains unchanged. But what you need to do is change the tactics and the strategy to achieve the same mission and objective you had before. That way, if you are relying on front store selling, you go online. You're still delivering the same product. If probably you are going upscale and now many people have lost jobs and opportunities, now you seek, where are my customers? Therefore, you'll be able to survive this period so that you can fight another day when hopefully this pandemic passes away. So there's a lot of opportunities. Right now, I'm encouraging people to take on a bit of more risk because people are fearful and you could exploit a really nice opportunity at the moment.
All right. Wow. Yes. Thank you, Karumba, for that, because like they always say, in times of crisis, opportunities can be found. And I think great business people who have a good strategy, which you really have, emphasize, is you have a long-term strategy, you know where you're going, and you've been, how do I put it? I think this season is when it has shown the difference between hustlers and business owners, right? Because if you're in business and you've really thought beforehand and you had your plan in 6 months, if nothing happens, this is what it'll do. It differentiates you, right? But if you're just hustling, right? I think those are a lot of the businesses that have gone under because they didn't see it in the future. But, I always say it is now time to rethink about your business, right? Come out from that hustling mentality into running big, successful, or medium-sized businesses that are sustainable. So thank you again for that. And you mentioned around about SWOT analysis, which is a very simple thing to do, but I always say because you're in the business, you might not see everything, because I see a lot of business people, depending on what size of their business, they're so focused on operations. They don't have time to think big picture or think about things going on. I think it's time that you bring in an advisor who looks at your business holistically, who sees it from a different point of view, who can assist you to make the right steps. And I believe that at that time, you want to reach out to Karumba or people like Gaitha, or any advisor out there who can support you on that journey to become successful in your business. So thank you again, Karumba, for that.
Thank you very much.
Right.
And
so we'll come to you,
if
Mr.
I
Haanee.
may jump in, really, if you're a business owner, mainly you tend to be very technical, focused on your craft. So you also suffer the risk of not getting the right advice. Really, if you need a marketing expert, a strategy expert, just go on. But really, just to keep to the theme of our conversation today, sometimes people don't appreciate professional services because it's not like a bottle of water, or a computer that you can see what you've gotten. It's a service, and yet very critical. Today, there's no large business that doesn't rely on advisors. And if an SME seeks to grow to the next level, you must hire the right accountants, tax advisors, strategy advisors, legal advisors, fundraising advisors, and that's how you grow, because you tend to be very technical and you need to be supported on these blind spots before you find yourself in trouble.
Okay. Thank you again for saying that, Karumba, because I wish to say that because it is very important. I'll come to you, Haanee, in just a moment. It's very important. All large companies out there, they have advisors. Either they go to these management consulting firms, they have these legal advisors, they go to the big four. No one does it on their own. So if the big corporates, whether they're private or whether they're public listed, if they're going to advisors, then what does it say about you who's in business, whether you're an SME? You do need the same kind of service. So again, it's about looking at who can support you, and there are various types of advisors out there who would be able to do that. So thank you again for Karumba for saying that. All right, so I'll come to you, Haanee. So for you, you are a lawyer. CMS is a global firm, which I really, really like, because I keep telling people we need to look at things globally. There's a business world outside Kenya, outside Africa, so we need to really look at this and harness all world-class experience. So for you, CMS focuses on law and tax, but I found out in Kenya, you're really focused on law. And of course, you're known as CMS, Daly, Inamdar advocates. So tell me, Haanee, what kind of legal advice do you offer to SMEs and to mid to large businesses in Africa? What is the legal service? Because there's a lot, but what do you specifically do in the commercial and corporate law department?
Thanks, Anne. I really appreciate you having me on the forum. Thank you to Regal Africa as well for this invitation. I'm also very grateful to share the platform with Diana and Karumba, who I'm meeting for the first time, and I look forward to meeting them in person and working with them. I echo Diana's sentiments about the introduction. It was such a warm welcome. I was getting emotional. And we also know that Diana has many talents. She's part of a choir. So it's good to have such talented people on the platform. You've introduced me already, but I think just for context, I will talk a little bit about myself and the firm and then answer your question if that's okay.
That's okay.
My name is Haanee. I'm a partner in the corporate commercial department at CMS, Daly and Inamdar. And yes, I do a lot of aviation related work. Daly and Inamdar, CMS is a top-tiered Kenyan law firm. It's part of a leading top 10 global law firm. And here's a very interesting fact for you. Daly and Figures, which is now known as Daly and Inamdar, what we've rebranded as, dates back to 121 years ago. So that's the origins of 1899. I joined the firm about 2 months ago, and I have to say I feel very honored to be a part of such an amazing team, especially being the oldest law firm in Kenya. There's they say save the best for the last, but there's so many jokes about lawyers going around, and I hope we're not going to be exchanging any of them today. My contribution this evening is simple. I'm going to try and address the need for businesses to ensure they seek legal counsel before embarking on business ventures, and then perhaps tackle the issue of cost versus value derived, because I'm sure that's going to come up. To your question, what kind of advice do we offer to SMEs and mid to large businesses in Africa? We offer, we're a multidiscipline practice. We're a corporate commercial outfit. So the kind of work we do is essentially almost everything you're going to need from day one. When you need to incorporate a company, you're going to need a lawyer to assist you with the documentation. If you have more than one shareholder and say there's 3 of you jumping into a venture, you may need a shareholders agreement. A lot of people don't know this. And they'll say, well, how do we govern the relationship between us? And I'm talking to the smaller businesses out there who are pooling funds and then coming together, but they need a rule book. And that rule book is a shareholders agreement, for example. And that's where the lawyers come in. So we're not just lawyers in the sense of we come around when you're in trouble. And that seems to be, the reputation we have. But more and more lawyers are becoming more important in terms of your business and where it's going. Now, I could tie in what I do with what Diana does, with what Karumba does, in terms of making yourselves investor ready. If you get it ready from day one, if you incorporate your company properly, if your employees have tidy employment contracts, if your business permits are up to date, valid, if your books are in order, tomorrow when you're seeking funding, there's something that you're going to come across, and this is the due diligence phase. At due diligence phase, you will be investor ready. And the lawyers on the other side, your investors' lawyers are going to dig through your background. And it's important that you have your house in order. And that's where we come in, and we're able to assist you with things like that. In fact, our firm also does deal with what if something goes wrong. So we have a very strong dispute resolution practice, which focuses on corporate commercial. So we're there in the good times and we're there in the not so good times. But we like to see ourselves more and more these days as relationship advisors, rather than just saying we're your legal representatives. We're there as your business partners. And most of the clients I've worked with, since inception, and they may have gone through a number of series of funding, and they're still our clients. And they still like to call me and ask me basic questions or very complex questions, but you establish that trusted advisor position where you're the chap who knows what the laws say you can or cannot do, and you're also the chap who understands the business from a legal standpoint and is able to say, no, you can't do this because it's illegal, or you can do this and this is going to help you in the future. So there's so many things I can talk about in terms of what we do for smaller companies, for mid to large businesses in Africa. We have an office in Mombasa, so you know we're available regionally. In fact, someone touched on, in fact, I think it was you, Anne, who said, you know, we need to start looking outside of Kenya. And, you know, law firms such as ours, and you'll find many in Kenya, are affiliated with international law firms. And the main reason behind that is that transactions, and Diana will tell you this as well as Karumba, is transactions have become cross-border in nature. And when you're part of a global law firm and a client comes to you and says, I'm taking over a business, right? It's more than likely, if that's a larger business, they're going to have a presence in more than one jurisdiction. And they're going to need lawyers in those different jurisdictions. Now, traditionally, we'd go, right, who do we find in Uganda? Open up the directory and start looking, or call up your friend and find out if they know someone in Uganda. But nowadays, when a client comes to us and says, we're taking over business and they have a presence in 4 countries in Africa, more than likely, we're going to say to you, no problem, we'll get in touch with our lawyers in those countries and we'll help you with your needs. So we become that one-stop shop. And, you know, I've worked in-house at Kenya Airways for 3 years, and having been in-house, I understand what it's like to be on the other side, in the client's shoes. Because I don't want to be shopping around for lawyers in Morocco and lawyers in Uganda and lawyers in Rwanda, when I can go to one lawyer and say to him, can you sort out these issues in these jurisdictions for us? That's probably, and that's why you'll have seen a lot of law firms have now got these affiliations. We call them Swiss Vereins. We have global networks. And then the other benefit to that is you now get a streamlined quality. And that's very important. When I was in-house, I didn't want to be referred to a lawyer I wasn't too sure about in terms of quality. But if I really liked my Kenyan lawyer and I liked the way he worked, ideally, I'd want my Ugandan lawyer to work in the same way. So when you're part of a group, you get that assurance knowing that, well, they come under the same umbrella. They're likely to provide the same quality. And that's what we strive to do. So all our lawyers are trained and they use the same documentations. They have the same knowledge and resources so that you're able to get this one streamlined quality service. I think that sort of touches on your question and, you know, why we're going global and why we need to look outside and what we do as a law firm for clients.
All right. Thank you for that, Haanee. I did notice that trend was happening in Kenya, and which is great, especially for my company that really thinks Pan-African and we have global plans. It is good because the kind of work that we all do as advisors, as a business advisor, as a transaction advisor, you always also need legal advisors. That's why I like using the word legal advisors as opposed to just a lawyer. Sometimes lawyers, people think they're, you know, contracts only, or you only see them when you're in trouble, but an advisor is actually working with you on your business journey. And again, that is why I always like this, and I'm loving this conversation, because it shows that each person has their part to play in supporting that business to actually achieve greatness in whatever it is that they want to do. And I didn't know that you were actually established in 1899. I know for all of us who start business, we are thinking, and personally myself, I'm thinking generations to come, and I'm thinking that's over 100 years, and I'm thinking 100 years from now, will they be talking about Regal Africa? I hope so, but that is really great to see that, because that tells you you withstood the test of time. So there's something good that you guys are really doing at your company. So again, for all of you who are looking for legal advice, you want to reach out to Mr. Khan and his team at CMS. They must be doing something right, and they will support you, like I said, on that journey in regards to business success. And I know you do have to leave, so I will just go ahead and ask you the next question, Haanee, if you don't mind, because one of the things that I have noticed with a lot of business, you know, with business, you're all about generating maximum revenue, but you're also really looking at the cost, right? So cost is a determining factor. And that's why we see like a lot of people really don't want to pay for anything extra. And sometimes they feel an advisor is extra, as opposed to seeing the value that we as advisors bring in. So tell me, Haanee, since, like I mentioned, businesses are so focused on lowering costs, so they only approach you when they need the service to grow their business. I'm curious, at your law firm, do you recommend that businesses engage you when they need legal advice? Or do you think it's better for a business to actually have a retainer agreement with you so that they're continuously engaging with you whenever they have any legal questions? So what model do you use at CMS, and what is it that you'd advise someone who's in business, who's looking to grow? What model should they use when they're trying to engage you as a legal advisor?
Well, it's an interesting question. It's a good question. But, you know, if I speak a little metaphorically, where lawyers are, you know, you made me think of something when you asked me that question. When I was a young boy, my father took me into a shop to buy a helmet for my bike. And there were many helmets on the shelf. And he, you know, he asked the shopkeeper, which one shall I get? And he said to my father, it depends, what's your son's head worth? So essentially, the more expensive one is going to protect your head. He's not going to die. The cheap plastic one, he's likely to have a concussion, right? So your question is, you know, cheap is expensive.
True, cheap is expensive.
Cheap is expensive, but at the same time, with the way law firms are getting more and more competitive, we don't have that traditional, we charge a lot of money per hour approach anymore. It's changed. And to your other question, when do you engage the lawyers? You engage the lawyers immediately when they're needed. Of course you do. You're not going to engage the lawyers when you're thinking of an idea. That's probably when you're speaking to Diana or Karumba, I assume. But if there's something that requires a lawyer to do not go to Google and try and download a contract and then make that your employment contract, because you would have saved on maybe, you know, a couple of thousand shillings here and there, but then 2 years down the line, when you're in court and you're dishing out millions of shillings, that's when you start to feel the pinch. But looking at it from a private equity and corporate angle, the sooner you engage the lawyers and the sooner your documents are in order, the less time and money you're going to waste trying to bring them to order at the point when you're trying to secure your funds, right? So if you're at the point in your business where you say, right, I need to raise capital, I'm going to go out there, and I think Diana, you mentioned it. I'm going to go out there to IFC, for example. Now they have strict criteria at what they're looking at. You know, your books have to be in order, your contracts, your permits, and they'll look at your contracts and look at clauses like change of control. What happens if we invest and take a share position in your company, right? Now, if you hadn't catered for those, you might end up losing that opportunity because you didn't think to have that in order, right? And so there's many, many reasons why. And then in terms of fees, I think the approach is subjective. It depends on what you need, right? I haven't yet had a recent case where we've had a client on retainer, only because to have a retainer where you're paying X per month for a year, you must have some assurance that you're going to get X amount of work, which is proportionate to the time expended of the lawyer in any 30 days, right? And sometimes you might have a month where you've not used the lawyer at all, but you're paying that retainer fee. So you end up losing. Now, having been in-house, what I found was when I was on the other side, I'd like to negotiate fixed fees where I can, because that allows me as a client and the lawyer, well, me to budget and to make sure. If you speak to most general counsel or business owners, they have a budget per year, or a business owner will say, I only have, say, 50 million shillings to invest in my business, out of which 5 million goes to my lawyers. And you can have that conversation with lawyers. You can say to them, this is what I have, and this is what I'm trying to achieve. Is this feasible? And you're then able to scope the type of work you need done. And, you know, there's certain things we could say to you that maybe this isn't very important now, but we can attend to it at a later date. But what you really have to do is do X, Y, Z. So you scope and stage the work, and then you're able to, you know, really budget for your lawyers, rather than waiting till 2 years down the line and you go, oh no, I have all of this to do. And, you know, in hindsight, it's going to cost way more than if I'd just applied my foresight and paid slowly and got my house in order. So that's essentially how I'd look at it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for explaining that, because a lot of the things that I know with a lot of business, depending on whatever size they are in, the issue is cost. So everyone is on a budget. So you don't want to go in and spend what is unnecessary, because you can use that money to do other things to grow your business. So that is why it is important, or I thought that was important for you to articulate. But I think what you said, it depends on the scope of work. It depends on what you need. So they would need to then come to you for you then to actually, talk to them as a business to understand, is it the work that needs to be done now, or a retainer model? It's different from every business. Every business is different.
Yeah,
All right. So thank you again for that.
Sorry, just one more thing on that particular point.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know if I speak for all lawyers, but my approach to it is relationship based. So if,
Okay.
I mean, I take an example from today. I had a long conversation with a client who isn't a client yet, but we've been talking for a week now, and I've spent a lot of time guiding him just verbally and telling him what he needs to do. And he said to me, right, so how much do I owe you for this? And I said to him, well, there's nothing at this stage. It's nothing, because it's in my interest that you know where you need to go. And I've told you what the scope of your work is potentially, and I shouldn't be charging you for that. But the moment we start to engage in work, I know you're going to keep coming back to me. And 10 years from now, my goal is for you to continue coming back to me for your advice. And that, there are different lawyers work in different ways. So
Yeah.
it depends on who you're going to and what their objective is with you. But if you want a relationship-based lawyer, make it absolutely clear to your lawyer what you're looking to achieve, and also make sure you pick the right lawyer when you're going into business.
Pick the right advisor, the right legal advisor, the right business advisor, the right transaction advisor. It's all about relationship. They must be good at what they do, but they also need to be able to support you. So it is about the advisor, and relationship with them is very, very important. All right. For some of you, I know we are looking like we are running a little bit late, but I know you have questions for Karumba, for Diana, and for Haanee. So if you have any question, I see a few people on Facebook, just go ahead and write it on the comments. And if you're on Zoom, just write it down, and I'll go ahead and ask the panelists to answer those questions that they may have. So now the next question for me is for you, Karumba. We just talked about legal advice. Haanee has told us what he thinks. And then now I really want to talk about strategy advice, right? Because that is what you do. And I think you alluded to it earlier, but for me, my big thing is really at this point in time, businesses need to really rethink their business model. Everything has changed in regards to what has happened in COVID the last couple of months. So what do you do? What is it at PineHill? What is it that you think businesses need to do to prepare for the new normal, as I put it? And why is it important for businesses to start to redesign, develop future-proof strategies for their businesses to be able to thrive? Why is it important for them to do it now? And why should they come to you at PineHill? You're mute. Karumba, you're mute.
Oh, thank you. So there are some specific services that we can offer a business. For example, right now it's a wonderful time to streamline your processes, the way you do things, right from from an operational aspect, so that there's no friction or waste or inefficiency or lack of clarity. A lot of time when it's the boom season, businesses tend to neglect drawing up their process manuals, their policy manuals, rethinking everything that can give them an extra edge in terms of the customer service model. And that is something at PineHill we are able to come, look at your business, see and map your processes, look at your policies, the ones you have, the ones you need, and therefore be able to just assist you with that. Very surprisingly, there are people that boast that they don't have a strategy, and strategy is one of the things that we do. They say they just got into the business and it's been growth, growth, and growth. But then what happens is that the moment there's a crisis like this, then you find yourself that you're exposed. And strategy is a document that brings everybody around the same call. As the founder, the CEO of the business, you could be clear on where you are going. But as you add more stuff, as you continue to grow, this is a document that can align everybody to the mission, the vision, the objectives of the business. And therefore, they are able to be their most productive. Obviously, most people know about the story of a janitor who was asked, and a bricklayer, what are you doing? They said, I'm in NASA, that I'm working to send a man into the moon. A lot of strategies and tactics of the business are held in the founder's mind. And what happens is when they're no longer there, then the business suffers a crisis of confidence and a lack of direction. But if you have developed a strategy document that you've involved each and every member of the staff, every head of department, every new staff member, then everybody is aligned and they know what they need to do. So in summary, I think this is a great period of streamlining your business processes. I know as entrepreneurs, we spend most of our time trying to get the next sale, but then as we grow without concrete processes, systems, and procedures, then we come tumbling down the moment we are hit by a crisis like this. Our strategy sometimes is very backward looking, and we are not engaging as frequently as possible. Indeed, Anne, I must say that because of the changing environment, businesses are asking us, can we just make a 1-year strategy or 2 years? No longer are we doing 5 years, because in 5 years, technology and the changes in the business and economic environment will affect so much. And after 1 year, if they have done well, then they can make another strategy for 1 or 2 years, and then another strategy for 2 and have another 2 years. In fact, a lot of businesses like large enterprises are doing quarterly strategy review just to make sure that the ship is being steered in the right course. So I think those two things are very critical if a business is going to grow, and these are some services that you can offer a business.
All right. Thank you for that. I really like the fact that you emphasize that you need to know where you're going. You need to have direction. I see that in Kenya, and not only in Kenya, actually, it's I don't know if it's an African thing, but I always people say, I just started my business. Just do it. I keep saying, you're not Nike. It's not just doing it. You need to know where you're going, right? You need to have a vision, right? You know the vision. How you get there might change over time, but what is the vision? And then the strategy changes because, again, it depends on what's going on. Like, nobody understood about COVID. I didn't foresee COVID coming in. And who knew? I can tell you last year, I didn't know I was going to be doing this in my business or doing training or actually having a business institute or really doing family work. I didn't know that. My strategy was always to help my clients create work. But then the way I'm doing it has changed. So businesses need a strategy to know what direction that they're taking. And I always say that's the difference between someone who's self-employed, because self-employed people, it's in your head, right? But if you're running a business, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to know, let the team know where it is that they're going to make sure that the business is running. So thank you again, Karumba.
Just a quick one, and before you go on. Really, recently I got a nice analogy. Let's say you are trying to sink a well to drill for water. You not drill 2 feet, then you stop. You go to another site, you drill 3 feet, then you stop. A strategy helps a business to keep focused. And as me and you have always said, you find entrepreneurs that are doing 10, 20 things and never succeeding in any. But if today you tell a company like Safaricom to go into a totally different line of work, at least they have a guiding document. And SMEs need to be careful about this, because this is one of the biggest risks, and makes fundraising very hard, because you see people doing public transport, farming, they have a shop, they have a design. In the end, it's like they're digging a meter of ground, never sinking aware, in one business deep enough so that they can get the financial well and the lubrication they need for their business to grow strong. So that is where then a strategy is so important, because it keeps you focused. Well, after you succeed in one thing, you can then probably diversify. But initially, you need to be so focused, because there are so many things that will pull you away, especially when you start to succeed. Eventually, you forget why you started the business, because your business will no longer have been focused on one line. And the strategy review session helps you, helps you to stay focused on what you said you wanted to do in the first place.
It's about thinking deep and not thinking wide. But this is Kenya. Eh? I have learned. Everybody says you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. You have to be hustling. But I always say, as a business, like you said, you need to go in deep. Even Safaricom is in telecommunication. Yes, it might be in financial services. Yes, it might be going in soccer. But it's only able to do that because it has solidified its position in telecommunication. So even as a business, before you start expanding to so many things, you have to figure out, are they related, and do you have your focus so that people know about that? So thank you again for that, Karumba. Think about it as a business person, think deep and not wide. So then I'll come to you, Diana, as we almost end our session today. It's been very interesting, and I wish you had more time, but I always say we want to keep it to 1 hour. So Diana, this is the question that I have. And again, I guess you alluded a bit to it earlier when you're talking about raising capital and being prepared. But one of the things that I've noticed, a lot of businesses, when they want to raise capital, they don't understand that you need to have the right transaction supporting documents. You need to structure your deal well. It is very important so that the person who you're actually approaching knows what it is that you want to do. You've articulated it, you can be able to pitch it. A lot of business don't see the importance. In fact, a lot of people just say, just go bring that investor and bring him to my office, we talk. And I said, that is not how you do it, especially an institutional investor. You can do that to a high net worth individual or a family member, but when you're really looking at institutional investors, the approach is different. So tell us, what is your experience at private equity support, and what is it that business people need to do, especially around supporting documents, to make sure that they're able to present their business in a way that an investor can look at and actually say, I think I want to dig deep and learn more about this business and put my money into it. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's a very good question. And the first thing I like to raise is, the first investor in a business is the entrepreneur. You are the first investor in your business, and you're the long-term investor in your business. People might jump ship, people might say whatever they want to say, but as the entrepreneur, you are in your business. So people tend to always think documentation is only with regards to transactions, but I always say it starts before. Because if you're the entrepreneur and you're the first investor in your business, you need to understand what is it that you're funding that business. All the salaries you're foregoing, all the land that you're liquidating to put money in this business. And to use an analogy, we've heard about the helmets, we've heard about the wells. Mine is very simple, and I borrow it from Chris Kirubi. Are you riding the horse or are you rocking it? Okay. Are you riding the horse or are you rocking it? When you're rocking the horse, there's a lot of movement. You know, it seems like things are moving, but you've not gotten from point A to point B, right? So part of investor readiness, we always say, is also internally looking and seeing, am I getting the right information as the key core investor in this business? So many times we get into a business and people are happy to say, oh, we have audited accounts. You do know that there are some people who, when you pay, they will not go through, they will simply sign and send it back to you. Because when they look through, they see the information, they're like, I'm not being paid maybe enough to go and analyze it. Let me just sign. So what happens is an entrepreneur, the key investor in the business, keeps getting the wrong figures, the wrong information, the wrong performance matrices. And when we come in and say, can we just look at your accounts? Things have been placed everywhere. So you think your business was performing when in actual sense it wasn't. There were gaps in that process. So I always say, if you think of yourself as a first investor in your business, then it's important for you to be getting the right information on a timely basis. So what use is the management accounts to you when it comes 3 months after the month has disappeared? You're not making well-informed decisions for the business to be able to grow. When do you catch the crisis? That's why it's always on fire, because the information you might have required is not coming to you in a timely basis. So we always say, as an investor, you need your own transaction documentation, because you're the first person who, when the business needs cash, you're the one pumping that cash and making that sacrifice. So what we help people do is say, let's look at your information. Let's look at what data you have in your business and how do we put this so that as an investor, the first investor in your business, you're able to make a decision of whether to keep pumping in money or it's okay to call it a day. It's fine. Where you've reached, you're like, past here, I cannot do it anymore because I'm not earning a return. Then when you think about the external facing process, this is now where we're talking about investor engagement, external people. They want to know, as Karumba has said, what's your strategy? And there's a strategy document that Karumba has also alluded to, but the investor is coming to look at it and say, how feasible is this? You want to open 10 stores, 30 stores, 50 stores. How did you open the first 2? How long did that process take? Is it feasible for you to take the same process and open 30 stores? What will you need? Another additional set of maybe 30, 40 staff. Is that feasible? Have you captured that? So what we help people think through is break down that growth into tangible milestones so that you're able to say, truly, if I need to buy a machine to come and maybe backward integrate, not only am I just paying for the machine, I'll also have increase in the number of staff. I'll also change my business because if I am going to be doing backward integration, maybe I used to get cash sales, I'm now changing into invoice billing because you're now getting into a different business. Have you thought about how that cash flow is going to affect your business? You used to receive cash, pay cash. Now you're going to be receiving invoices after 45, money after 45 days, but you still have your other obligations. So don't think about transaction documents only in the context of the transactions that's external, which is key, especially when you're engaging key investors, institutional investors who want to understand your strategy. They want to make sure that your accounts are right. And they want to make sure that, as Khan had mentioned, you have the right legal structures. It's not one company owns the building, then another company owns the machines, then another company owns. So investor is thinking, where am I putting money into?
My money.
Which one? Is it like pata-potea? You know, you move the things together. That's the importance of having transaction advisors, because we'll come and say, these are the documents that you need. This is how you need to clean up, because you need to make yourself presentable for that external investor. An institutional investor is not removing money from their pocket. Always remember, they have investors behind them, pension funds, you know, insurance funds, who are very process related. So they also have to be process related and make sure that when they're investing that money, they are following the right process. So in short, you're an entrepreneur, make sure you're getting the right information from your business so you know how to invest. When you're engaging external investors, take time to prepare yourself, because you'll find that the process is shorter. You'll also know who you need to talk to and who you don't need to talk to, because there's some investors who will never tell you no. They'll engage, they'll smile, they'll have meetings, they'll never sign that check. So that is the importance of understanding which transaction documents you need and how to go about the process of putting together this information.
Wow, thank you, Diana, for that. It's very, very important. But even one of the things you highlighted is the entrepreneur is the first investor. You have to know your numbers. And I always say numbers don't lie, right? So you look at your book, I can look at your book and immediately be able to tell what's going on with your business. And that's what everyone is looking at. And it's not an investor's money. I always say, if you want someone, you know, someone whereby they won't really ask too many questions, go to a wealthy individual, family, friends. People call them fools, but I say find angels. Go to those kind of people, and they usually look at very early stage. But if you want to take your business to the next level, you're running a very legitimate business. You want to deal with, you know, professional investors. Then the way you do things is different. So again, you really need to go to people who can work with you on that journey. Now, it looks like we're running a little bit late, so I'll just ask the last question to my panelists because I don't see any question on Zoom. I don't know if I have a question on Facebook, but I'll just go ahead and just have you just say your last remarks, because I think we need to have another discussion and even training, because there's a lot to talk about in this space for advisory work. So I'll just go ahead and start off with you, Haanee Khan, go ahead and just give us your last remarks. But also what I would like you to just emphasize and tell us is what you're known for, what CMS is known for in the marketplace, what innovations that you provide that sets you up from the competition, and why any business who's listening to this will want to work with you and not any other law firm. Go ahead, Haanee.
Thanks.
Why you?
No, I mean, there's not much to say apart from, I agree with everything, Diana was just saying. With lawyers, what we do is we make sure you have those processes, those structures documented. Okay, so it's nice to have conversations, it's nice to have agreements, it's nice to have staff, it's nice to have assets, but you need to have something that connects the dots. And you also need to know what regulations, what industry you're working in, and whether you're in compliance or not. Because another thing people don't want to do is to get hit by penalties and fines a year down the line when they're, in non-compliance with, say, a NEMA regulation or something along those lines. So it's very, very important that you understand your industry and the framework in which you're working in. I think one of the things I will say is there's many of us out there. There's this whole notion of lawyers are expensive. It needs to disappear. Like I said earlier, cheap is expensive, and there is no harm in having a conversation with your lawyers. There is no harm in attending forums like this and educating yourselves. But one thing I would say is don't try and do it yourself. I'm not going to go into private equity support. I'm not going to try and do Diana's job. I'm not going to try and do Karumba's job. I'm not going to try and operate someone, or conduct brain surgery. So let the lawyers do what they do. And if you're going to start copy pasting documents, just know that you're doing that at a high risk, and you may potentially have to pay for it at some point or the other. I think that's mainly all. In terms of our firm, like I said, 122 years, you can't really beat that in terms of experience. 122, not 100.
Wow, 122.
I keep getting, it amazes me every day. But, we have individual lawyers in our firm, our managing partner, for example, who has in excess of 50 years experience himself. So when you look at people like that who've been working for large corporates, we've been involved in very complex transactions, large mergers, cross-border transactions. You normally look at experience and credentials when you're looking to speak to someone you need advice from. And that's what I would say makes us stand out. And, personally for me, I've tried to develop a niche in aviation because a lot of my Kenya counterparts, a lot of the Kenyan firms look outward for that legal representation when we're here. There are Kenyan lawyers who are able to provide you with that support. You don't have to go to London. You don't have to go to Ireland or the US if you want to lease an aircraft, if you want to do any of that type of work. We exist. So it's time that we start looking inward. And like I said, being part of a global group, you get value for your money. You now have the local lawyers, the Kenyan lawyers who are well equipped. In fact, we're starting to get better equipped because most of the sexy transactions are happening on this continent. So we are sharpening our skills more than the lawyers out there in the West. So this, essentially, we're the ones you want to be working with. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say. But, thank you so much for having us today, and I really appreciate it. It's been a really, really interesting discussion.
All right. Thank you very much. And I really like what you said about what your company is, but you also said that people need to start looking inward. We have the expertise as Africans. So why are we looking outside? We can look and we can collaborate, which is also something that you emphasize. I'm a big believer in collaboration. You can't do it all. And that's why I'm always working with different professionals to bring the best service to my clients. It doesn't happen just me or my team. So I'm very big on collaboration. So I'm very glad that CMS is doing that. I'll go on to you, Diana, and give us your last remarks. Again, just tell me why people should work with private equity. What makes you stand out in the market, and what innovation are you bringing in to make sure that you're competitive and you stand out? So go ahead, Diana, tell us.
Thank you. What I will say is the key unique point about private equity support is if you think about the team, we are people who have been on both sides of the equation. We've been on the investment side, either in private equity, investment banking, capital markets, or even asset management, looking at deals through the eyes of different investors. From the capital markets point of view, that is like at the securities exchange, or from an asset manager's point of view, and this is where you get your high net worth investors or your institutional clients who are looking to either give you private debt or private equity. And then also from the private equity side, where we've been investing in small and medium enterprises. So we have that knowledge within the team. And I think that also helps us understand the various processes and context within those sort of capital raising or fundraising happened. The other thing is we are entrepreneurs ourselves. And I think that really gives an interesting insight. There is a difference between the way I look at a problem. I'm not saying it is the only way, but being an entrepreneur over a couple of years now, we sort of also understand some of the hectic aspects that entrepreneurs are dealing with. So we understand entrepreneurs, and we have worked a lot with, in fact, all our clients are local founders. So family businesses or 3 founders or 2 who've come together and they've been running businesses for quite a while. And we have experience across various sectors. But most importantly, I think is we try and give you the honest and best advice that we can. Sometimes this might mean that we don't necessarily progress into a transaction, but I always say, hey, if I can be upfront with you, tell you that maybe 1 or 2 things need to be sorted out, we can actually help you. So it's not a thing of we are coming and saying you're sick and we can't help. We say, hey, we understand there's a challenge here. We will actually help walk through it and help you prepare for that process. So that's just us in a nutshell. And we're looking forward to engaging with SMEs and family businesses. And yeah, just give us a ring. That's the banner, that's the name. If you just Google us, you'll get our contacts. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Diana. It's all about the team and the experience at private equity support. So if you need any services there, reach out to them and they will be able to assist you with that. So I'll go ahead and end it with Karumba. Again, give us your last remarks. Why should people work with you at PineHill? What makes you stand out? And what innovation are you using? Because it's all about innovation, right? What sets you apart from the competition?
Thank you very much, Anne, for your question. I think one of the things that makes our firm a bit unique is that I have worked for large companies that do investments, that do big things, global firms, and I've always desired that SMEs rise to the next level where they can become big. Imagine a large bank today, like Equity Bank, if the founders was in every branch in Kenya, like right now I'm speaking to you from Kisumu, and there are branches in Mombasa, in Rwanda. What has made that business scale? It's they have, and of course, attract a lot of funding on the way along and eventually made the founders very rich. It's because the processes, the systems work. And the business, we call it a business in a box, can be transferred to various towns and cities within Kenya and beyond. So having worked for large enterprises, we try and bring the businesses along that path. We have people who do risk management within PineHill. We have research associates within PineHill. We've got investment analysts within PineHill. And we are all here for entrepreneurs. What innovations do we bring into the market? Very, very personalized approach. And I like personally as a head of the business to be involved, because a lot of times we see other people who work differently to us. The client pays top dollar, and yet that's the last time you see the partner accept the meeting to ask for the check or close out the project. I, as a leader of the business, plus other experienced consultants who we associate with, will walk with you along the way, understanding the challenges that you are facing. Just one more final thing. Okay. Don't ask whether your governance system, your process systems, your strategy, how much money will it bring? Because if you don't do it, even the money that you're looking for, you won't get it. A lot of time, people neglect these housekeeping issues because they just want to do the sales, they want to win the business. But a lot of times why they're not winning the business is because once the client has an experience with them, the experience is horrible and they leave. So work on your in-house, and sometimes that's all that you need to get to your next destination of where you're not struggling to raise money or to win new customers.
Okay. Thank you, Karumba. So the reason you should actually work with PineHill Consulting, they have great experience as a team and there's a personalized approach. When you go to PineHill, most likely you'll work with Karumba and he'll be able to give you the best. And so with that, I apologize for running a little bit late, but I guess because today was the grand finale of the business conversation, I took a little bit more time because like I said, it was very important for me to have this group of people because I'm very passionate about business. I think a lot of business needs the right support to take it to the next level. And sometimes a lot of business people are not they don't understand why they should pay extra. And I always say it's about the value that the person brings to your company. You might not see it right away, but in the long run, it will definitely help. And as Haanee said, cheap is expensive. So you want to go to the advisors who will pay you and give you the right performance. And so with that, I want to thank my panelists. Thank you all of you for agreeing to join me today. It was really interesting having this conversation, and I know it could take longer, but we have to wrap it up. I also want to appreciate my audience on Facebook and on Zoom who join in. I also have a lot of people who watch it after. So if you're going to watch after, then I'm really happy that you'll be able to get some nuggets of wisdom, as I always say. But for those of you who joined in, thank you again for doing that. I appreciate you for joining me. This is why I started the business conversation with Gaitha. When I started, I didn't know what to expect. I had a plan that I wanted to share information and I wanted to support business, but I wasn't sure who would tune in. But every week, different people join in. A lot of people have been reaching out to me, and the goal for us at Regal Africa and myself personally is to support you as a business. And so with that, even as we end the business conversation with Gaitha, I do want to let you know that in 2021, based on my experience in 2020, we'll be actually launching what we call the Regal Africa Business Institute, just basically supporting the business ecosystem in Africa. Because I always say the only sustainable way to eradicate poverty on the African continent is through business. Trade, not aid. And so we need to support our businesses. We will not be dealing with any micro and informal business. You just have to be a formal business that wants to be scalable, that is sustainable, and that wants to be successful. Those are the people who would come in, join us. And with that, we'll be able to then help you to be able to be supported by advisors like all the people that you've seen today, and the network of people that I have who are funders, who are advisors, who are doing different things in business so that we can take it to the next level. And so I want to end by saying, whenever in business, remember it's about providing a service, a solution, a good and service that people will pay for you. It's about making money for yourself and for your family. But what I've been telling everybody, it's about creating generational wealth. So don't forget about that, that even as you make money for you and your family and create generational wealth, you also want to be making an impact in the community that you serve. And I believe all these panelists that we have today are creating an impact with the businesses that they serve. So with that, I'll say thank you again for joining me. I appreciate it. This is the end of the business conversation with Gaitha. Until next time. And with that, I say bye-bye and God bless. Bye-bye.